May Pang was John Lennon's girlfriend for 18 months in 1973 and 74, commonly referred to as his lost weekend period. I took May back to the apartment she and John lived in when they first landed in Los Angeles 32 years earlier.
We spent a lot of time here. It was our first place together. It was our little home. John was not interested in like these big lavish houses that people think. I mean, it's nice and all, but really it was like home. I would cook, I would do things, you know, and this was our place. Even if he was listening to music and mixes, know that the TV set was always on.
When did he enjoy picking up the guitar?
Nighttime, late night and early morning. And he would go downstairs and we'd just take his little Martin guitar and just sort of sing into the cassette.
And what kind of mood did he have to be in for that to occur?
For him, it was either the highs and the lows. If it was too middle of the road, there was no creativity for him. So it had to be some type of crisis to get him to write.
John, I know, didn't like to drive.
I let him drive here once, and I was freaking out because it was on the 405. And I said, tell me when you're ready to pull over, and I'll take over from there.
May, were you a big Beatles fan in the 60s?
I remember at night that John says, who was your favorite Beatle? And I said, Ringo. And he said, what? I was so embarrassed. I said, yeah. I said, but your songs were it. I loved your songs. And which is true. I loved his songs, but my favorite Beatle was Ringo. And John was quite upset, actually.
Henry Diltz has shot some of the great rock covers and some of the most iconic musicians of all time.
Linda called me in '71 and she said, Henry, we're out here in Malibu and we've just done this album and we need some pictures of the two of us to put in the songbook that goes with the album. So I went out and spent the day sitting around the swimming pool with Paul and Linda. Paul was sitting there plunking on his ukulele because he played that a lot in that album. And you know, he would sit there just sort of absentmindedly playing little chords and looking around. I'm snapping pictures. And over on one side was the swimming pool and his two little daughters. They were just holding hands and jumping in the pool, you know. And he's playing and without, you know, a moment, you know, without missing a beat, he starts singing Two Little Sisters Jumping in the Pool. This beautiful melody. Just a sweet little song, you know, and it just kind of went up into the air, you know, and disappeared. I thought, wow, I mean, there's a Beatle tune, there's a McCartney tune, you know, that no one will ever hear.
It's a noisy day in New York, but there's the Dakota across Central Park on Central Park West. And I have my great memory of John Lennon when I met him that one night with Yoko and David Bowie. And we went back to the Dakota after hanging out. It was the mid-'70s. We were coming from some show we mutually did.
Are you ever getting back together again?
Are you guys getting back together again?
No. This is terrible, isn't it?
So we go back to John and Yoko's place at the Dakota. Bowie was with us. We come in, John pulls me to the bedroom. Lennon's bedroom, we'd never met each other before. And incredibly disarmingly, he said to me, Artie, you worked with your Paul recently. I'm getting calls from New Orleans that my Paul wants to work with me, and I'm thinking about it, and I don't know how did it go when you worked with Paul? He's measuring his situation. The great John Lennon with Paul McCartney, with Paul and Artie, and testing me out as if to make sure that my ego is fully established as a colleague of his. So now the ball's in my court. I say, John, remember that there was a musical blend that was a great kick. If you can return to the fun of that sound and the musical happenings with your old buddy and ignore the strands of complication and history, what I found with my Paul is the harmony and the sound happenings are a full agenda. They'll keep you busy and you'll have fun.
Did he seem like he wanted to get back?
I thought he did. The subject seemed very straightforward and uncomplicated. It was a musical question. It wasn't a heavy personal question. It really was of not many people I can go to get a sense of how did it feel, but I trust you might know my situation.
When we first signed with Warner Brothers in the UK, working very near the top was Derek Taylor. And Derek was a father figure to us, and we of course knew his history with the Beatles. We were all Beatle fans, you know, and we watched everything about the Beatles. And sometimes the only time you would ever get a glimpse of the Beatles was this quick run from the house to the car. And one day I was heading to the office, and as I was just about to go up the steps, Derek and an entourage of some sort come flying out the door and kind of whisked me up and spun me around and said, "Right, we're off." And we got into this big Daimler, I think it was. And it wasn't until I sat down in the car that Derek then said, "Jerry Beckley, George Harrison." And there I was caught up in one of those dashes from the building and stuff, and I was right in the middle of it. I think I said something like, you know, I've got a song called "I Need You" on our first album. I need you. And I made reference to, you know, that I got the title from his song "I Need You" on Help. And he said, "I got it from somebody else," you know, in a typical droll George response, which I just thought was fantastic.
Nancy Andrews is a former international model turned photographer. She was Ringo Starr's girlfriend during the second half of the 1970s.
Well, here's a story I've never shared with the world. Ringo, as we all know, loved rings. We went down to Rodeo Drive. It's a Saturday afternoon, so it's really busy. We're looking in the cases. He comes over and goes, "Oh, look at this." There was a black tray that had like five rings in it. And he goes, "Which one do you like?" And I said, "Well, the one in the middle." I said, "It looks like the Chrysler building." He puts it on his pinky and he's looking at it, and I'm thinking, I know he loves rings, but that is like too delicate for him. So he said, "Here," he said, "let me see it on you." Just very nonchalant, matter of fact. And he puts it on my finger. I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, God, this is beautiful. All of a sudden he's on his knees. And I look at him and I go, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Darling, I'm asking you to marry me."
Let's get married.
Behind him, I saw the whole shop kind of stopped. I'm looking at him and he goes, "Darling, I'm on my knees. Will you marry me?" I said, "Yes," you know, and I'm looking at this beautiful ring. Everyone there's like 15 people in the store. Cheers, you know, and he kisses me. I just looked at him and I just said, "You are good."
So let's get married.
He's very good at that kind of thing. You know, he's so romantic. He always was able to get me, you know.
Although they didn't end up getting married, Nancy remains philosophical.
When he met Barbara, I was pretty angry, but that's lasted all these years, you know? I mean, I'm really glad that he found someone to go this huge distance with him and be there for him.
We were doing a mix of Watching the Wheels. It was a complicated mix and there was a lot going on. And I had to pee in the worst way. We were getting close to ending the mix. We were almost there. John's sitting next to me and he's just thrilled. He's loving the way it's coming out. But I didn't want to break the vibe. So I figured as soon as I hit the rewind button, I could make a dash for the bathroom. So I get up and I run out of the control room, and someone had come in and put a suitcase in the doorway. And I decided to jump over the suitcase. As I jumped over the suitcase, I cracked my head on the door frame, a metal door frame. You know, I saw stars briefly, but I said, "Oh, Jesus, I'm gonna have a headache from that." And then I ran into the bathroom, closed the door, locked it, started to undo my fly when I went like this, and it was just blood and I was bleeding everywhere. And then the stars came back and out I went. John said he heard the body fall. He ran out of the control room and started kicking the door in, and I'm completely gone. I have no idea who I am, where I am. Nothing makes any sense to me whatsoever. And then I hear this Liverpool accent. And now I'm thinking to myself, am I in England? Who is this coming in the door? And he's like, are you all right? What's going on? Are you all right? He's kicking the door. He kicks the door open. I'm still totally out of it. And he looks down at me, and I look up, and I say to myself, I'll be damned if that isn't John Lennon. I have no idea where or what is going on, but John Lennon is looking at me. So I said to him, John? And he says, yo, what happened? God almighty, look at you, a mess. I said, am I in the Beatles? Hey. I mean, it just came out of my mouth, and he said to me, yes, Ringo, of course you are, to this show. And he started cracking up because he knew I was knocked silly. And he picked me up, and I got a few stitches, and I came back with a headache, and we did the mix.